She had been dead for 2 whole years, and no one even knew. Harmony Montgomery, 5 years old, blind in one eye, a little girl who bounced between temporary homes and then vanished during the coldest winter in New Hampshire. No missing persons report, no search party, no final camera footage. Just silence, no name, no reason. For 2 years, her father kept cashing government checks under the name of his dead daughter. Her mother screamed into the void, desperate to be heard, and the very system meant to protect her watched it all happen. How does a child disappear in the middle of America, right under her own father's roof? And no one asks, where's Harmony? Maybe it's because, to them, she never truly existed. But today, we're telling her story, every missed warning sign, every unanswered cry for help, so that no other child will ever have to endure what Harmony did. Harmony Montgomery was born on June 7, 2014 in Massachusetts, into a life that, sadly, too many white children in rural New England know all too well. Poverty, instability, broken homes, and the foster care system from a very young age. Harmony was a special little girl. She was blind in one eye, but the other sparkled with joy whenever someone paid her attention. Foster families who cared for her remembered her as cheerful, cuddly, always smiling, and the first to raise her arms when someone walked into the room asking to be held. But that same sweetness, that vulnerability, made her easier to let go of when adults got overwhelmed. Some families gave her back after just a few months. Others loved her, but weren't allowed to keep her for long. Between 2017 and 2018, Harmony was moved through at least 6 different homes. No stability, no familiar pillow to sleep on, no one she could confidently call mom or dad. Still, Crystal Sorey, Harmony's biological mother, never stopped fighting to get her daughter back. Yes, Crystal had a history with drug addiction, but she went through rehab, she joined recovery programs, she got housing, a part-time job, and followed every single court order just to reunite with Harmony. She asked to video call her daughter, sent letters, sent gifts, but usually she heard nothing back. In one of the rare moments they did connect, a FaceTime call in April 2019, Crystal saw a bruise on Harmony's face. When she asked about it, Harmony simply smiled and whispered, "I'm okay, Mommy." That was the last time she saw her daughter alive. Just months later, without warning, a Massachusetts court gave full custody of Harmony to her biological father, Adam Montgomery. Crystal was devastated. She sent dozens of emails, made hundreds of calls, begging the court and Child Protective Services to check on Adam's home. But no one responded. To the system, Harmony was just another difficult case. A file, a number, a closed matter. But to Crystal, she was the light of her life. And that light was dimming, while she stood helpless in the dark. Crystal Sorey wasn't what society calls a perfect mother. She had a record. She had struggled. She'd once lost custody of both her children. But what the system never saw was how hard she tried to make it right. She completed her rehab, got certified, found a job, moved out of risky housing. More importantly, she never stopped searching for Harmony. With every move, she updated her address with the agency. She sent handwritten letters. She did everything a mother could do except hold her own child. But in mid-2019, a single decision by the Massachusetts court crushed her last hope. Adam Montgomery, Harmony's father, had a violent criminal record and had just been released from prison. But the court decided he seemed stable and had a right to parent. They didn't look into his past. They didn't ask Crystal. And they never fully checked on where or how Adam was living. Crystal wasn't even officially notified. She only realized what happened when her calls stopped going through, and Adam had taken Harmony, cutting off all contact. The months that followed were a nightmare. Crystal contacted Child Services saying, "I think my daughter is in danger." They said, "We don't have enough evidence." She pleaded again. She was bruised. She was starving when she was with Adam. They said, "That's a family matter." She showed up in person, knocked on doors, sent urgent letters. Each time the answer was the same. A shrug, a promise. "We're looking into it." For 2 entire years, no one, not a single person, checked on where Harmony was living. No unannounced visits. No verification calls. No case updates. Harmony quietly vanished from the records. And Crystal was quietly labeled a nuisance. The breaking point came in 2021. Crystal finally pushed hard enough that police were forced to open a missing child investigation. With sunken eyes from sleepless nights, she screamed during her final phone call to a social worker, "I don't trust anyone anymore. If you won't find my daughter, I will burn this whole thing down." That was the first time in 2 years that someone finally listened. But for Harmony, it may have already been too late. By the end of 2019, Adam Montgomery was homeless. He was living out of cars and cheap motels with his wife, Kayla, and their children, including Harmony. They had no permanent address. Sometimes they crashed with relatives. Sometimes they slept in their car. On paper, Adam was a father trying to rebuild his life. But behind closed doors, it was chaos, filled with violence, cold nights, and constant fear. Harmony had been through loveless places before, but the last few months of her life were the darkest. She was beaten, punished, left alone in a corner of the car. All for things no child should be punished for: bedwetting, not listening. She was 5, blind in one eye, fragile, quiet. To Adam, she wasn't a daughter. She was a burden. Some days, she wasn't allowed to eat with the family. Some nights, she had to sleep alone in the freezing car, wrapped in an old blanket. Kayla, Harmony's stepmother, would later admit that Adam lashed out at Harmony far more than any of the other children. To him, she was a problem, not a person. There were no cameras, no social workers checking in. No one, outside that car, knew what Harmony was going through. Until one day, in late December 2019, Harmony stopped showing up. Kayla later said that Adam had flown into a rage because Harmony had messed up the car. He struck her in the head, again and again. Harmony passed out. And then, she never woke up. Kayla, terrified, did nothing. The other kids were told to stay quiet. Adam remained eerily calm. He placed Harmony's lifeless body into a large plastic bag and hid it in the trunk of the car. Cold, silent, gone. No one looked for Harmony. No one filed a missing person report. She vanished, like she had never existed. But if Harmony died in 2019, why was her father still receiving food assistance in her name all the way through 2021? After that night, Harmony Montgomery disappeared from life and from every official record. No medical reports. No school enrollment. Not a single document to show she existed in 2020 or most of 2021. Adam Montgomery, cold and calculated, continued living his life like nothing had happened. He hid his daughter's body, first in a plastic bag, then in a cooler. At one point, he stored her in the basement of an acquaintance. At another, behind a car's air conditioning unit. He even wrapped tape around the bag to contain the smell. Every time they moved, Adam took that bag with him, like it was nothing more than luggage. For 2 years, he kept collecting food stamps under Harmony's name. He signed documents, filed forms, confirmed in writing that, "My daughter lives with me." No one checked. No one verified. Not a single caseworker or agency ever showed up to see if Harmony was really there. Meanwhile, Crystal Sorey, Harmony's mother, kept calling, kept emailing, kept begging someone to investigate. And every time she got the same cold responses. "There's no clear sign of danger. We need evidence to open a case. She might still be with her father and stable." But how can a mother, completely cut off from her child, provide proof of danger for a little girl she's not even allowed to see? By late 2021, Crystal wrote an emergency letter to police in Manchester, New Hampshire. In it, she said, "I'm afraid my daughter is dead." Words that should have been heard in 2020 now rang out like a funeral bell. At last, police opened a missing child investigation. They went to Adam, asked about Harmony. He said, "She's living with her mother." They went to Crystal. She broke down in tears and said, "I haven't seen my daughter in 2 years. The search began, but there were no new photos, no witnesses, no footage. Every lead had gone cold. Harmony was already too far gone in every sense of the word. Police then turned to Kayla. Slowly, she began telling the truth. And with each detail came a new crack, not just in Adam's lies, but in the entire system that allowed this to happen. Only then did America begin to learn the name, Harmony Montgomery. They said they couldn't hear her cries. But the truth is, Harmony was crying out. They just refused to listen. As police launched their investigation in late 2021, they immediately uncovered a web of contradictions, coming from the very people closest to Harmony. Adam Montgomery, the father, told them, "Harmony's living with her mother in Massachusetts." Crystal Sorry, her mother, broke down. I haven't seen my daughter since April 2019. Adam's wife, Kayla Montgomery, at first backed up her husband. She said, Harmony's with her mom. But under deeper questioning, Kayla began to change her story. Little by little, the cracks began to show. Police checked official databases. No school records. No medical files. No address history. Harmony had simply vanished from the system since December 2019. They reviewed past calls from neighbors, from relatives. An uncle once reported Adam for brutally abusing Harmony. No one followed up. A neighbor recalled seeing Harmony locked in a car in the snow. No one ever came to check. Everything dismissed as whispers in the wind. During multiple interviews, Kayla slowly began revealing the truth. She said Adam once hit Harmony in the head over something small. She admitted Harmony's body was wrapped in plastic and duct tape, hidden in a friend's basement, then moved again and again. But the most chilling part was the silence. Everyone in that household knew, and no one said a word. Investigators searched for surveillance footage from areas where Adam had lived. Some cameras had been wiped, others were broken. The few clips they recovered, Harmony wasn't in any of them. Even Kayla, after telling the truth, repeated something that sent shivers down detectives' spines. I thought, if I spoke up, we'd all get arrested, and the kids would have no one. No one wanted to be responsible. No one stepped up when it mattered. And so, the truth remained buried, not just by a crime, but by fear, indifference, and selfishness. But if everyone knew, if they heard the cries, why didn't anyone save Harmony? As the truth behind Harmony's death slowly unraveled, the questions grew louder. How could a child disappear for 2 full years? And not a single social worker, not a single judge, not anyone in the system notice? The answer lay buried in a pile of ignored reports. Throughout 2019, at least 17 separate warnings were filed with Child Protective Services across both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Each one raised red flags: abuse, unstable living conditions, high risk to Harmony's safety with Adam Montgomery. And one by one, they were dismissed. A caseworker once tried to check in, but never saw Harmony in person. Adam claimed she was asleep or out with a friend. No one came back. The case was marked no immediate danger. An internal investigation would later reveal something devastating. Harmony's case file had been passed between 3 different states. Each time, vital information was lost. No one had the full picture. Each worker saw only a piece. And in those gaps, Harmony slipped through the cracks. As the case finally gained national attention, New Hampshire officials held a press conference. They were deeply sorry. They promised reform. But Crystal, the mother who had begged for years, asked just one thing. How is it that not one of you ever came to check if my daughter was okay? A former Massachusetts judge, the one who had granted custody of Harmony to Adam, later spoke publicly. His voice trembled during the interview. I was wrong. We believed the paperwork. We didn't see the truth. Each word cut deep, a wound for anyone still holding on to hope. Because if even the judge admits failure, what justice is left for Harmony? Police pressed on, but there was no body, only testimony, faded evidence, and a tangled system full of holes. Harmony wasn't just killed by her father. She was abandoned by an entire machine meant to protect her, in silence, in negligence, in the cold language of bureaucracy. And then, out of that darkness, came a voice, a surprising confession from the youngest child who had also been in that car, the voice that would finally change everything. Amid the countless interviews filled with contradictions, deflection, and blame, one small voice stood out, a voice that brought the entire investigative team to silence. It was Kayla Montgomery, not the stepmother, but her 8-year-old daughter from a previous relationship, a child. In a closed-door interview, Kayla sat gripping the sleeve of a worn-out hoodie. When asked about Harmony, she didn't answer right away. But then, her eyes slowly lifted, and the words began to spill out, like a door cracking open after years sealed shut. Kayla said she had seen her dad hit Harmony many times. She said Harmony didn't eat dinner with the rest of us, and was often made to sit alone or locked in the car. She said her stepmother, also named Kayla, once told her to keep quiet, saying, "She has problems. She needs to learn to take responsibility." But then came the moment that changed everything. A winter night, one she would never forget. Harmony got hit really hard. She didn't wake up. Dad said she was just sleeping. But I saw blood. The room froze. Investigators struggled to breathe. The little girl kept going, slowly, steadily, like she was reciting a painful memory. Dad wrapped Harmony in a black trash bag. Then he put her in the trunk. One time, he put the bag in a freezer at my uncle's house. Another time, I saw him put it behind the air conditioner in the car. Kayla paused, then asked, almost in a whisper, "Am I in trouble?" No one could answer. Her testimony didn't just confirm suspicions. It shattered any illusion of doubt. Adam Montgomery hadn't killed his daughter in a moment of rage and regretted it. He hid her. He used her. He kept living beside her body like she was nothing more than trash. And all the while, other children were forced to watch. How does a father do that? Not just once, but for months? In 2022, Adam Montgomery was officially charged, not just with second-degree murder, but with a long list of crimes: child abuse, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, obstruction of justice. In court, Adam's appearance chilled everyone. His eyes were cold, his face calm, no fear, no sorrow, no emotion. When asked about Harmony, he didn't apologize. He didn't cry. He didn't admit to a single thing. Prosecutors presented Kayla's testimony, photos from the freezer where Harmony's remains had been stored, and recordings of Adam joking and dodging questions about his daughter during jail calls. Each piece of evidence cut deeper than the last. Adam only repeated one line: "I don't know where she is. I didn't hurt her." The judge instructed him to look at a photo of Harmony, a bright smile in a pink dress from one of her early foster homes. Adam didn't turn his head. His defense attorneys had little to offer: no helpful witnesses, no convincing arguments. Meanwhile, the prosecution revealed one more detail, one that shocked the jury. Adam had told a fellow inmate, "I took care of it. They'll never find her. They can dig up the whole damn state and still come up empty." The trial ended with a conviction: second-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, public assistance fraud, falsifying documents. Sentence: 45 years to life. But one thing still haunted everyone in that courtroom. Harmony was still missing. Her remains, moved from place to place, may have been destroyed, buried, or discarded in a place no one has thought to look. And Adam remains silent. As if the truth is the last piece of power he refuses to give up. Throughout the trial, Crystal, Harmony's mother, sat in the front row. She held a photo of her daughter. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared straight ahead. And when the sentence was finally read, she spoke only one sentence, enough to stop the room cold. "Don't congratulate me. My daughter still hasn't been buried." A verdict may close a courtroom, but it doesn't end a story when the body has yet to be found. After Adam Montgomery was convicted, many believed the case had finally come to a close. But for those who had followed from the beginning, especially Crystal, it was far from over. Because one haunting question still remained: where is Harmony's body? There was no burial, no funeral, no grave to visit, to place flowers or whisper a goodbye. Only a sentence and a gaping void in a mother's heart. Police had searched everything: landfills, motels, Adam's old cars, even the woods. They brought in cadaver dogs, scanners, dug for weeks. Still, nothing. No clothing. No bones. Not a single trace. And as the media attention faded and the headlines moved on, the funding for the search quietly dried up. But Crystal didn't stop. She petitioned the FBI, spoke to reporters, shared every detail about how the system failed her daughter. And then, something unexpected happened. A former Massachusetts judge, the very one who signed the order granting custody of Harmony to Adam, made a public confession. "I didn't look closely enough. I trusted the paperwork from New Hampshire. I was wrong." His words ignited a wave of outrage. People began to ask, if one judge can admit a mistake, how many other decisions have been wrong with no one ever saying it out loud? Some former social workers also came forward. They admitted they had felt uneasy watching Harmony's file change hands so quickly. One said, "I wanted to hold on to it and dig deeper, but my supervisor told me to close it. Someone else has it now." Piece by piece, a bitter truth came to light. Harmony wasn't just failed by one man. She was failed by a system built to deflect responsibility. No one killed Harmony alone. Her death was the result of years of silence, of nods, of shrugs, one after another. In July 2025, Crystal Sorey, once dismissed and ignored, filed a civil lawsuit against the state of New Hampshire and its Child Protective Services. This wasn't just a personal lawsuit. It became a historic one, accusing the state of not just negligence, but systemic recklessness. 17 ignored reports weren't a fluke. They were structural failure. They were administrative violence in slow motion. The case file was hundreds of pages long. It listed every single moment the system received a warning about Harmony's safety, calls from relatives, reports from teachers, concerns from neighbors, Crystal's own desperate pleas. Each one was a chance to save her. Each one was ignored. Crystal's attorney said, "We're not just asking for damages, we're demanding truth and accountability." And then, the unimaginable happened. The state of New Hampshire agreed to settle the lawsuit for $225 million. They didn't publicly admit fault, but they agreed to pay emotional damages and to re-examine child protection procedures statewide. For many, it was seen as a victory, but to Crystal, it was something else entirely. Proof that her daughter really was abandoned, not just by a violent man, but by a country that once promised no child left behind. She used part of the settlement to create a support fund for single mothers fighting to regain custody. She began speaking at legislative hearings. She told Harmony's story wherever someone was willing to listen. And the public? They couldn't forget. At a candlelight vigil in Manchester, near the place where Harmony once lived, hundreds gathered. They brought flowers, stuffed animals, signs with quiet but devastating words. "We're sorry, Harmony. You should have lived. We see you now, we won't forget." Harmony's death didn't just mark the end of a young life. It opened the floodgates to deeper questions. How many other children are drowning in silence? How many families are screaming like Crystal, and no one hears them? And if justice came too late for Harmony, will we let it come too late for the next child too? The story of Harmony Montgomery doesn't have a clean ending. There's no image of her body being found. No burial date for a family to say goodbye. No funeral for a community to gather and mourn in peace. Harmony, a little girl who survived countless foster placements, in the end, died alone in a cold car, at the hands of the very man the system had trusted to protect her. And still, the question hangs in the air. Where is Harmony? Adam Montgomery remains silent. Her stepmother, Kayla, has been separately convicted for lying to investigators and collecting fraudulent benefits. The social workers are no longer on the job. The judge who gave Adam custody has since left the bench. And Harmony? She's still out there somewhere. In a forest? A landfill? Or in a place only her killer knows? Crystal hasn't stopped searching. She says she won't rest until her daughter's remains are found, so she can at least give her a place to rest. But behind that strength is a mother who has lost everything except the belief that Harmony deserves to be remembered. Because the deepest pain isn't just losing a child. It's the feeling that the whole world helped forget her. In a televised interview, Crystal once said something the nation couldn't forget. "My daughter is not a case file. She's not a number in a system. She was real. She loved. She smiled. And she deserved to live." And that is what we must remember. Harmony wasn't a case. She was a child. A symbol of the forgotten. A warning about a system that explains everything, but takes responsibility for nothing. A reminder that if we stay silent, more children like Harmony will disappear into the dark. No one was charged for the system's failure. No one was fired for ignoring the warnings. No one apologized. But no one gets to forget.